Stop making minimum payments on your credit card. Hi, my name's Manda Walker and I want to explain a few tips about managing your credit card. As we always say, if you can make your monthly payments and pay it off the whole balance every single month, that is the way to go. Because the way credit cards work is they are high interest, or what they can do is offer an introductory balance and then it will increase every month. So for instance, if you're making a minimum payment every month, that probably is just clearing the interest and your balance won't be going down. So you could be stuck with that balance for a long time. So be aware and try and pay it off in full if you can. If you can't pay it in full, at least make the minimum payment, but try and make slightly more than pay off more than the minimum payment. If you feel from the balance that you can pay it off in 12 months or 24 months, split that payment off and pay the minimum payment plus that minimum extra amount that you can. Don't withdraw cash on your credit card. It may seem a convenient thing, especially if you're traveling abroad, but make sure you get organized and you actually go to the exchange and you get your currency that way. By drawing out money either abroad or over here from your credit card, it is an extremely high rate. Set up a direct debit for repayments. That's a lot easier than trying to remember every single month to make that payment. What you can actually do is set up the direct debit just for the minimum payment, and then every month, once you've reviewed how much money you've got, whatever you've got that you can put to making payments to the credit card, you can actually do it at that point. So in subsequence, you're actually making more than one payment each month. The minimum payment, which is set up a direct debit, and you're also going on and making additional payments, which is great, which will reduce your balance. Make sure you read the small print. The small print is really important so you understand your card completely. Don't use all the credit. There's a thing called credit utilization. Now, for example, when lenders, i.e. for a mortgage, are looking to see how well you're managing credit, yes, they will look at whether you've met the minimum payment and you've been paying it every single time, but they will also look at credit utilization. They would like your credit balance on your account to be 30% of your credit limit. So for example, if you've got a credit card which has a limit of £1,000, they do not expect the balance to be any more than 300. And if you can pay that off every month, then that's even better. Mobile apps are the perfect thing to A, keep an eye on what you're spending, and B, make quick overpayments whenever you need to. So keep an eye on those apps and tick the box that says notifications. So then every time you use your credit card, it will notify you. That's useful for if your card is cloned and being used fraudulently. It's useful for if you've set up sort of subscriptions and things to that credit card account and you've forgotten about it. That is the best way to sort of initially know what you mean. The other thing I would suggest is to review your credit card statements. Every month you get it, review it and just double check you're aware of all of those transactions, and if there's any that look slightly iffy, then talk to your bank about it. Also, if you've got subscriptions that you have set up that are coming off that credit card, check that you still use those subscriptions. When was the last time that you used them? The next thing I'd like to say is look at if you have been using your card for a while and it's got a balance and it is taking you a while to reduce it, what is the interest rate? Can you shop around for a better interest rate? Can you move, for example, and look for a zero rated interest rate? If you wanted to have a card that has rewards, make sure it's rewards that you're A, going to use, B, don't just spend just to get the rewards, and C, make sure that you're aware of what the rewards are and how it all works. Again, read that small print. The next thing is when you're looking at credit cards, they may be great for certain purposes, but also look at where they're accepted. For example, American Express is great for miles, so air miles if you're planning to fly different places, but there are some banks and some shops, retailers that will not accept credit cards like that, just for one example. The next is look at balance transfers. Now, with a balance transfer, how that works is you could have, say, £5,000 worth of debt on your credit card, and you could apply for another credit card that has a lower interest rate, and you could do a balance transfer to move it across. Now, don't be afraid of, if you've got 5,000 that you want to move across and you apply for a credit card, 0%, for example, and they only give you 3,000, still transfer that 3,000. Don't spend don't spend on the first card anymore. In fact, I'd recommend you cutting it up and then carry on working on paying off that 2,000 as soon as you can, and then making minimum payments on the card that has the 3,000, the second card, for now. And then after that, as soon as you've paid off the first card that's on the higher interest rate, you can move on to the other one, and not only you can add to the payments that you're making against it. So when you're initially doing the minimum payments, now you've paid off the first card, on the second card you can use that money to pay off even more than the minimum payments that you were making, and then that is the best way. Don't think to yourself, okay, I've got 5k worth of debt, they're only offering me 3, I'll refuse it, because at the end of the day, 5k worth of debt or a higher interest rate is worse than 2k at a higher interest rate, and then the 3k at 0 rated. If you've got any questions about that, please put it in the chat and I can do another video to explain it in detail. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the introductory offers. So if you do get a credit card that is 0 rated, how long is it 0 rated for? Is it 18 months? Is it 24 months? Make sure you put that in your calendar, and a few months before, say 3 to 6 months before, start looking at other cards, start applying for other cards, so again you can move over. Or make it your aim. If it's interest free for 24 months, divide the balance by 24 and make sure that you pay it off every month. In fact, divide it by 23 so you can actually pay it off the month before you need to, which is the best way to do it. Use the card for what it's meant to be used for. So for example, if you have a card for an emergencies, make sure it's literally for emergencies, and make sure you pay off that card straight away if an emergency comes up. Don't think, oh, okay, I've got £1,000 limit on this card, I'm going to start using it for, you know, bits and bobs and things, and I'll pay it off later, don't worry about it, because before you realise that has increased. And the example I had earlier where you had a 5k credit card or a card with 5k worth of debt on it, and you moved 3k over and now that is 2k, make sure you reduce that limit so you can't spend anymore, but then also take into consideration your credit utilization. So don't reduce it too much that it affects your credit score. So that's something else to consider. Or as I said, make sure that you look at reviewing your credit limits, but also take that credit utilization into play. The next thing is, if you can't for any reason reduce, you can't move to a credit card with a lower interest rate, how much is your interest rate? If it's more than 10% per month and you can only afford to make minimum payments at this point in time, have a look at a personal loan. At the end of the day, a personal loan is more than likely to have a lower interest rate than a credit card when you do have problems with your credit, and it is a closed credit loop. So what I mean by that is, when you borrow a personal loan, they will say to you, you will pay it off in, you know, 5 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and you make those payments, and you know at the end of that term it will have been paid off. It's just like a mortgage, it's a set period, rather than with a credit card it's an open loop, which means it's open debt, which means you just make the minimum payment and you could carry on going on making the minimum payment forever and never pay the full balance off, because at the end of the day, if the interest rate is high enough and you're only making a minimum payment of say 10% and the interest rate is more than that, you're literally only paying the interest. So you'll never even start paying off the actual original balance. You'll just be paying the interest that's accumulating every single time. And then you'll get into the situation where you've been paying off the minimum for years and you still haven't affected the balance or reduced it any at all. But if you'd got a personal loan 2 years ago or whenever it was, even though maybe the interest rate wasn't as good, or it was just the same, at least you've got, it's a closed loop, so you'll have paid it off at the end. Now I really hope those tips were useful. Please feel free to comment, like, share the video, and also subscribe to my channel so I can give you more information about mortgages and money matters, because they really do matter. Thank you.